This segment is from the Air Raid Hour podcast. The full show is live every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Cover One YouTube channel. Don't miss out.
These next two guys are, I think, a couple of Eric's favorites, and obviously one of these guys is a guy that I've already kind of fallen in love with in the sort of evaluation process, and that's Javon Baker from UCF, and the other guy being Jamari Thrash from Louisville, who I know Eric really loves. I know he's got some drops issues, but to me, like when I was starting to look at Javon Baker, looking at his average depth of target, incredible numbers, 21.9 yards per catch this year at UCF. The body control was the thing that I noticed a lot with Javon Baker, and it feels like he's the type of guy that you could put opposite of Stephon Diggs from day one, and potentially a guy that could develop into an alpha type of receiver. But I know Eric's big on him. I'm really becoming high on him. Again, you tell me. I don't think he's necessarily a round one guy, but day two seems pretty reasonable for a guy like Javon Baker. And then Jamari Thrash is the guy that I think maybe is a little bit more, there's lack of consensus on him. But what about these two guys?
Sitting next to Eric in the stands there in Senior Bowl, Javon Baker made one Moss catch where it was just a fade into the end zone on just red zone 101 drills. Guy threw it up. Can't remember who the quarterback was, but ball was placed pretty nicely. Baker elevated like an elevator to go up and get it. And I was actually standing. We were standing at the time because sitting on those bleachers 4 hours a day for 3 straight days, it gets hard on the butt and back. But I'm standing next to Eric, and the ball went up in the air, and Eric leaned his entire body onto my shoulder. Just like leaned on me as the ball went up. And then he caught it, and he takes his left hand and grabs my shoulder and just shakes me like this. So Eric loves him some Javon Baker, and the entire week he looked great. He was catching everything thrown his way. Javon Baker is kind of quiet, right? Like nothing about him pops in terms of him being hyper athletic or a crazy good route runner or anything along those lines, but he's just quietly consistent, sure-handed. The ball goes up and he has the ability to climb up and get it. And he showed a good amount of polish in his route running, and he just looks stable. I think it was just this presence of like, if you're going to throw the ball his way, he's going to come down with it 9 out of 10 times. He made himself, I think, a lot of money as well. Again, we're talking about day two guys. So I think for the Bills fans that are listening to this, it is not round one wide receiver or bust. As much as I love the round one wide receivers, play the board. Like if you've got a list of guys where you're like, okay, these 5 or 6 guys, if they get to us, great. Or if Bean wants to pull off a trade up and go get one of the elite options, you got 10 picks. I can see that being an avenue to explore as well. But if you're sticking and picking at 28, and you don't love who's there, you don't have to force a wide receiver round one, because there are going to be other potential high impact players at positions in need for Buffalo there at the 28th pick. One of these guys might be available to you in the second round. Maybe it's just an exercise in patience, which I know is not Brandon Bean's strong point, but
or mine.
Yeah. Hey, me neither. Trust me. I'm a Troy Franklin guy all day long. If he's on the board at 28 and we go another route, I'm going to cry and pour myself a very heavy whiskey. But Javon Baker, I think, had a great week down in Mobile, looked very consistent.
Mm-hmm. How about Jamari Thrash?
Jamari Thrash, great separator, ran awesome routes. The drops were very prevalent, though. That is my biggest concern with Jamari Thrash. I don't have the number in front of me, but I want to say his drop percentage was around 11%. It was a hefty number, and that's not a great thing to have. He would run this incredibly crisp route, create a world of separation, leave his defender in a blender, and then would just drop it. And it was disappointing. So I think Jamari Thrash, if he can shore up the hands, if he can get some good work in with a position coach that, you know, sends him 1,000 balls a day on the jug machine and just really, really work the hands, then he definitely has ability as a separator. But in terms of a target for me as a Bills fan, this isn't a guy that I have high on my board for Buffalo to go get at this point.
There's 2 guys now that the comment section is kind of like doing my job for me, mentioning and are asking about, because I would say there's some differing opinion on these guys specifically. Xavier Legette from South Carolina. It's very interesting, these two guys being mentioned together. My brother-in-law, South Carolina alum. My brother, UNC alum, Tez Walker, another guy who really had a nice season with Drake May, coming over and transferring in. Size guys, boundary receiver guys. Do you see either of these guys as, well, first question, I guess, is which guy do you like better? And second question is, do you see either of these guys as fits for the Bills as a downfield sort of threat as a replacement for Gabe Davis?
I like Xavier Legette a lot better than Tez Walker. This is going to be something that is kind of like hot take season that you guys are, people are going to think that I'm just spouting for the sake of spouting. But I heard this a lot when I was down in Mobile. I've got a round 3 grade on Tez Walker. I don't think that he's an option at 28. If this is one of the things that I'm saying earlier, have your list, get your like 5 or 6 wide receivers that you are comfortable with in round 1. If you're Brandon Beane, that list, in my opinion, should not include Tez Walker. And if it's not one of those guys, don't force wide receiver. I would rather come back and get Javon Baker on day 2 than reach for Tez Walker at 28. I don't see that. Tez couldn't catch anything all week. He was dropping everything. And listen, as someone who analyzes prospects, I want success for all of these kids. These are players that are trying to pursue their NFL dream, that are trying to become one of the top, 0.5% of football players in the world by making it to the NFL. And for Tez, when he got on the field for the actual game on Saturday, I was like, man, please have a better day. I left Mobile on Friday, got home, put the game on Saturday, and I'm watching it. And I'm just thinking, Tez, please catch something. Like, please come up with a play down the boundary. Like, because that's what he did. He was a stretch guy. He's going to run a go route, a deep post, or a deep corner, and that's basically his repertoire because the route running is not there for him to be utilized underneath. He's fast. We know he's fast, but there's no nuance to throw off defenders. And the deep routes just weren't there. He wasn't catching anything, and he didn't catch a single target in the game on Saturday. I think he had 5 or 6, didn't catch a 1. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really rough. Xavier Legette, I got into a lot of battles with people on Twitter because he was listed at 6'3" with South Carolina. And then when Senior Bowl released their graphic, they had a 6 foot and 7/8 with a V next to it for verified from a third-party source. And I'm going, oh, yeah, he is not 6'3". And people are like, well, he's still big. And I'm like, I'm not debating that. I know that he's built like a Mack truck, but he's not 6'3". Stop calling him that. The verified numbers down in Mobile, 6'1". Forgot what his weight was, north of 220. He's built. I mean, look at that picture. Yeah. The dude is a freight train when he has the ball in his hands.
Everyone just
223 is the
everyone.
There you go.
Everyone just crossed out DK Metcalf for their comp and just wrote in AJ Brown. That's what.
And that's the difference. It's 2 inches, right? Yeah. He's AJ Brown in that regard in terms of how he looks. And when he walked on the field for the first time at practice and he had the crop top going, I'm not doing a crop top. I do not have his abs, but he had the crop top going and he walked out on the field. And I was like, that dude is freaking different the way that he is built because he was in the second team to take the field. There was no one on the national team in the morning that had that body type. And then he walks out for the second practice like, holy crap, who's this dude? Oh, it's Xavier Legette. Sweet. Xavier Legette, to me, I think he was battling an injury all week because the first day he didn't look right. Day 2 looked a lot better for him. He was catching everything. He was making some good athletic boundary catches. Day 3, he went out there. He looked like he was hobbling when he got onto the field. And I was like, he's not right. They shut it down like 20 to 30 minutes later, and he didn't play again in the Senior Bowl. So it's kind of hard to analyze him from that regard because he wasn't right. But to me, day 2, he was like, I'm going to put one really, really good day on film. Mm-hmm. And on day 2, he gave it everything he had. He fought through it. He was making contested catches. He was doing the thing. He'd be an intriguing option for me. I still like him better as a round 2 pick, but he's not going to fall to where the Bills are picking in the second. Mm-hmm. So I would rather go another route of a position of need at 28 than Xavier Legette, but I really like Xavier Legette too. So it's this weird kind of balancing act.
Could see the first ever Brandon Bean trade out
Trade
of
down?
the first round. Yeah, trade out of the first round. Maybe collect a second, a third round pick or something of that nature. A second, a fourth round pick. Take him in the latter half more towards 40, and then add another pick on.
Oh,
on
I'd be thrilled because he is built, man. Like he looks great. If he's able to move down and make that happen because someone wants to come up and maybe there's a team. So it's like when Baltimore drafted Lamar Jackson, right? You got a team that wants to trade up for the 5th-year option on a quarterback on someone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's JJ McCarthy that's still on the board, late first. He's toolsy but not polished. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. His good looks really, really good. His bad looks pretty dang bad. But a team goes, you know what? I can work with him and figure that out. And they want to get him there in the late first. Maybe that's a possibility where you're able to get down into the second, take Xavier Legette, maybe add a fourth on top of it, call it a day.
That would be intriguing, and also be intriguing, as some of the people in the comment section mentioned, for him and Justin Shorter to have some kind of ab competition in training camp. I think the Bills Mafia babes would enjoy that one.
Oh man,